Now, first I need to make it clear right at the start that this is not some sort of actual rumor or even speculation at this point, I suppose. Rather, depending on your point of view, and I'll get to those in a moment, this might be one of the best or worst ideas you've ever heard in your life. And I'm of course talking about the idea of Revan being played by Keanu Reeves in an Old Republic trilogy, which, if the rumor is true, and yes, this time it's an actual rumor, is the time period Benioff and Weiss from HBO's Game of Thrones will be setting their upcoming Star Wars trilogy in. And as far as I can figure anyway, and maybe others have had this idea before him, who knows, but it comes from Isotonic on Instagram, who did some fantastic artwork of Keanu Reeves as Revan that you're seeing here at the start of this video and in the thumbnail, and I reached out to him on Instagram, even going so far as to create an account there, and he was cool enough to let me use his work in this video, which I greatly appreciate, so thank you if you're watching this. And I absolutely urge you all to check out his Instagram, where he's got a lot of other amazing stuff, and a link to it will be in the description below, and I guess I'll also put a link to my new Instagram account there as well, where maybe I'll do something with it in the future. Anyway, what I did earlier today then was to put up a poll asking how you all felt about this maybe somehow possibly happening someday. And I know it hasn't been up for very long, but this is again one of my quick take polls, where I just try and get a baseline as to how people feel about something, before reading some of the comments that were left, mostly picked at random, and then giving some candid responses to a few of them, before summing up all my thoughts at the end of the video. So without further ado, let's take a look at the results of the poll, where we'll see that a little over 80% of people seemed really in favor of this, with just under 10% pretty much solidly against it, with the remaining 10% of voters in the middle thinking it might work, but they weren't sure they'd be in favor of it personally. And honestly, I don't know if these results surprise me or not, because when I first heard the idea, I thought to myself, you know what, that could actually work. There could really be something there. Keanu Reeves has certainly come a long way from the days of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, even though he's apparently going back to the role in a recently announced third Bill and Ted's movie. Anyway, before I get too deep into his filmography, let's jump right into the comments, starting as usual with the top rated one that comes to us from Kevinator, who said something that, well, I'll put up on your screen, but won't read because I do try to keep this channel pretty much PG rated. Nevertheless, let me just say, well said. Next then, let's get to a comment from Silver Dragon, who said, "This is a very, very interesting idea. I love Keanu and I love Revan, and I do imagine Revan as someone dark and quiet, but also intense, so the only thing is Reeves might be a bit too mellow." And yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Revan is certainly a dark and troubled character. However, if you told me that Keanu Reeves would play a character like John Wick, well, I'm not sure I would have believed that until, well, I seen it. Next up then, a comment from Crusader4300, who said, "If Keanu can get one thing in the bag as far as Revan goes, it's definitely the look. What I don't know is if he'd be able to do things like inspiring speeches. Revan was a leader after all, and leaders, as Kreia says in Knights of the Old Republic 2, have a voice that stirs others to action." And yeah, I would agree with that. He doesn't have the most powerful voice in the world. He's no Mel Gibson in Braveheart, for example, who could probably get just about anybody to follow him into battle and die. But if he needs to make any big speeches, I suppose the helmet could be on when he does it, assuming he's dark side. Either that or maybe we try to avoid big speeches. Moving on then to a comment from Chris Evans, who said, "Honestly, not a bad idea. He's got the look and the action skills for it, but I'd rather they not appropriate Revan." And I can certainly see what you're saying here, my friend, but unfortunately they are going to appropriate Revan someday somehow, because there's money to be made off of him. The only question is, how do you want to see it done, I suppose? Next up then, we got a comment from the Noblesse, who just said, "Who?" And I'm not sure which who you're talking about. Do you not know who Keanu Reeves is, or do you not know who Revan is? Because either way, I feel like you're missing out. Alright, let's get to a comment now from the Scotsman, who said, "Yeah, I could get behind him playing Revan. However, I'm not happy that the Old Republic is now on Disney's chopping block. Hopefully they don't mess this one up." And yeah, I can certainly understand that fear, but as I said a couple comments back, it's going to happen. They're going to tackle the Old Republic time period. We can only cross our fingers and hope that somehow they do it justice. Moving on now to a comment from Ours Turcati, who said, "Considering the fact that Revan wears his mask a lot of the time, it would be more interesting to choose an actor for the quality of his voice, so that the dialogues reflect true Revan." And yeah, you do have a good point there, though you could always hire a different actor to do the voice while the mask was on, or heavily modulate Keanu Reeves' own voice while he's wearing it. Alright, next up we have a comment from, well, let's just call you Obama. We're all friends here, right? Anyway, they said, I mean, make him look a little bit younger, and sure, he already kind of looks like Revan. And yeah, I'll give you that. He does look a little old to be playing Revan. However, if you look at what they did to Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel, making him look 25 years younger, at this point, pretty much anything is possible technology-wise in these movies. Next up, then, a comment from Oxlord who said, I don't really know how to say it, but he doesn't look as tough as I would imagine Revan looking. Okay, fair enough. I'm not sure Keanu Reeves is the most rugged-looking guy in the world. I'll give you that. Alright, next comment then comes to us from Tarquin Weatherby, and they said, he may not be the most respected actor out there, but look at how much people love him as Neo and John Wick. It could work. And you know, you're right, you never really hear his name mentioned when talking about the great actors in Hollywood these days, so it doesn't feel like he gets a lot of respect for a lot of roles that he's been in that are really quite popular. Alright, let's move on to a comment from The Straight Path who said, no, Keanu can't play in Star Wars. They have to stick to unknowns. That would be best. Unless maybe he played Ezra. And yeah, I could certainly see that. It'd be a really good fit now that I really start to think about it. And going along with that last comment, I found this one here from Solvum Probler Studios who said, or Young Dooku. And yeah, that's another interesting choice. And personally, I wouldn't mind seeing a little pre-prequel stuff out of Disney. Next up then, Darth Revan himself wanted to weigh in on the matter and had this to say. I have mixed feelings. On one hand, I think he would be an excellent Revan. Going to the Old Republic is a great idea. However, I don't think they should bring Revan back. Why? Because it was the story of Revan that really made Revan Revan. It was the fact that the players chose who he was that helped define him. To be fair, the book and Star Wars The Old Republic arguably already butchered his origin interpretation. I do think that bringing Revan will do good for the franchise if done right. They have to get the key elements right, but it cannot be the same story as Knights of the Old Republic. He would need 1. His morality, saving lives no matter what the cost may be. Chaotic good, selfless, yet be the arbiter of what is accomplished for good. 2. His iconic look. 3. A light side and dark side dynamic. I hope they don't go gray, but he must have a good dynamic between the two sides, such as using the dark side for quote-unquote good. 4. He must be surrounded by some iconic friends, at least Bastila, Canderous, Karth, HK-47, and Malak. 5. He must be a competent, wise, tactical genius, an intelligent individual. If they can nail those, and a few more key elements, I think they can pull off a new Revan story. Nonetheless, I fear they will butcher my favorite character, just as they did Thrawn in Rebels, Luke in The Last Jedi, Bane in the Clone Wars, to name a few. Yet if anyone is to be the savior of the franchise, I think of no one who deserves the honor more than Revan. And here's the thing about all this. Revan really could be the destroyer or savior of the franchise at this point. Not that I think it's truly on the verge of death or imminent collapse, mind you, but it's not in a great place right now. Any fan who's being honest and objective will admit there are some problems right now. And if you brought back Revan and nailed his story, keeping in mind a lot of the things you mentioned in your post here, it could go a long, long way in bringing back a lot of disgruntled fans. However, if you brought him back and didn't really do him justice, well, I don't think I need to say how bad that could end up being for Disney and Lucasfilm. Alright, now let's move on to a comment from Cadet Gator who said, hey, I've been promoting that idea on my Facebook fan page, Dark Lords of the Sith, hashtag Keanu Revan. And well, hopefully now more people will check out your page and throw you their support. Next up then, a comment from Heath Carpenter who said, I am kind of getting sick of movies using big name actors for any large role. Sure, Keanu might be good for the part, but is he the best? I highly doubt it. There are thousands of actors who would try out for a new Star Wars movie. There is bound to be someone who fits the role better than him. I'm all for someone less known getting the role. And I certainly know what you're saying here. Usually I'm all for new actors getting roles like these, especially in Star Wars for some reason, so that they don't bring other famous roles into the mix and ruin the effect, if that makes sense. I mean, if somehow Tom Cruise, for example, got a role in Star Wars, I don't think my brain would be able to fully process that he wasn't just Tom Cruise in Star Wars. However, in this case, I don't know, I like the Keanu Reeves is Darth Revan idea. Next up then, a comment from Miles Scott who said, maybe Viggo Mortensen or Christian Bale. They need someone who could radiate power with their mere presence. And both of those are really interesting choices, and a younger Viggo Mortensen I could certainly see pulling off a Revan. As for Christian Bale, well, kind of the problem that was just mentioned a moment ago. I just think I would see Batman instead of Revan. Alright, the last comment then comes to us from Lockjaw, who said, but at least have the villain steal his landspeeder and kill his Wookiee. Alright, to give my quick final thoughts in closing here, I don't know why, but I really like this idea. I do. Maybe because I'm a fan of Keanu Reeves, maybe because I could actually see him pulling this off, maybe because it sounds fun somehow, or maybe because I think it's only a matter of time before they go back to the old Republic and make Revan canon, so why not Keanu Reeves? The poll here begins to suggest a lot of people would be in favor of it, and mind you, a lot of those who watch my videos are not the happiest of Star Wars fans right now. So if they're behind it, that might really say something. And despite 5% of voters seemingly firmly against it, I really didn't read any comments from people who thought this was the worst idea ever. Yes, a lot of people did express some reservations about the idea, and rightfully so. But I don't know, this just feels like something that could get a lot of people excited again. And if they did a Revan trilogy right, I think it could go a very long way in erasing the pain of the sequel trilogy for those who didn't like it. Well, that's all I've got for this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think of this idea. Is it crazy or incredible? Is this something you would want to see fans try to rally behind and make happen? Either way, let me know in the comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.